to the second part of this video series where we look at the construction stages of the Ffarquhar replica layout. So, we've went through our design process and done bits of our research for the layout's construction, and so now is the time to get started on building the baseboard. Now, looking at the track plan of the layout, you can actually know instantly that the layout covers an area of 6 feet by 4 feet, but it is going to be split up into two separate boards, which will then fold up into a box of 2 feet by 6 feet by 1 inch 6 inches. So this is where we're going to be having a look at some of the materials and all that we're going to be using to make the baseboards. Now, before we start, I just want to point out here, I'm not going to show you how the baseboard is going to be put together, because we're going to be doing this off camera. But I will be showing you what the finished result will be like. So I'm sorry if there's going to be people out there who wants to know about building the baseboards, but I can give you a rough idea as to explaining how the framework and all is set up. So yeah, let's get started here. Now, I'll talk about the framework first of all, just so I can get that out of the way. And we're going to be using 2x1 timber. Now, you can get this in all DIY shops or woodworking hardware stores, and this is the ideal stuff for when it comes to building the framework for model railways. Now, in order to make the framework, it's best to do the outer frame first of all before you start anything else. And we're going to be using a system which is called butt joints. This is basically because this is the simplest way of making a framework. But there will be some people who would make up these joints where they take the narrowest section of the 2x1, mark it across here, and then mark it in half. So it creates like a sort of I would describe it as a sort of like a jigsaw type of connection. So they'll be like, let me see if I can. I'll just give you a rough drawing exactly, just in case anybody is not so sure what I mean. Let's have a look now. So it's like something you would see it's like parts you would see out of Tetris. So I don't know if you can see, if the camera focuses in that there. So you get like parts like this here. So you get these sort of joints here. More better if it's yeah. So you have like joints out there all the way around the layout, and there'll be another set of wood just sits on top of that there, and you just screw down the middle of that there. But because we're going to be using butt joints, it's going to be a lot more easier for us to just to make up the framework. For those who don't know what butt joints are, it's basically you get two frameworks and all. These are quite long at the minute here, so nope, there we go. It's just basically just doing that. That's basically what it is. Just that's what a butt joint's like. So then you just put the screws in the ends there, and it'll keep a nice secured section. So once you've done your outer framework, the next section is to try and make up the bracing. Now, some people would skip this section and rely on the baseboard top for the rigidity. Now, I just want to warn you, do not fall into this trap, because there'll be times when the baseboard top would start to warp, and operation trains and stuff will become a thing of the past, because it will just be a huge nightmare. So the bracing will just give a wee bit of extra support to your baseboard, just so everything's all nice and secure. So I've already marked out where the bracing is going to be. And I think I discussed this in my last video, where I showed you where all the bracing is all going to be. But this is where my bracing is going to be. So we're going to have the bracing every 2 feet apart of the timber frame, and just make sure it's all nice and secure. But also we need enough space for cutting out this riverbed. Now I'll talk about that there in a stage. And then I'm also going to have is at the very ends of the baseboard. Now this is where the back seam is going to be placed on. Now I'll be doing the back seam probably at a later stage. I might show it later on. But the back seam will be supported on battens, which will be again same 2x1 stuff. They'll just be cut down to 9 inches, and they'll be screwed on every foot along the section here. Now we're going to be using two 2x1s for the ends, more or less 4, because we're going to have both of them going to be the exact same. But we're going to have 4 9-inch lengths of, I think it's 2 by 2 wood. Now this is where now the reason why I'm going to be using this is because, as I said before, the layout's going to be hinged, so we need a thicker bit of wood for the hinges in order to be set on. So if I just reach over here and get the hinges, I went up to the hardware store the other day and bought some hinges, and there we go. So there's our hinges. We've got a little wee brass hinge, and that's just going to sit. Just in camera. That's just going to sit on top there, and there's going to be another one of these as well at the other end of the hinge, so that you know, they're interlocking together, and then when it's folded up, it can fold up into a box. So there's going to be 4 of these at each end. So 2 for the hinges, other 2 for little dowels, so that it's lined up and secure. There's also going to be little clamp clips, and also some slide bolt lock as well each end, just for when it's being packed away. So once we've got the framework out of the way, we're going to talk about the baseboard top. Now lots of people use, I've seen some people use foam, which is like insulation foam. I've never actually experienced with that before, and I can understand its usefulness, because it's good for making up the scenery base, and you're able to make up sections for, you know, bridges or river crossings, or, you know, it's good, just good stuff to work with, and also it's reduces the sound of the trains running. But I've never actually seen that before in my time of modelling, so I wouldn't really know much about it. So, but other people use like hardboard. Hardboard, plywood, or MDF for a good top surface. Yeah, I've used those types of wood before, but this one here I've read up, and this is the stuff I used from the very beginning of my railway modelling, and this is the stuff called Sandila. Now, this stuff is used for office boards, for, like, you know, pinning stuff on, or for insulation bits and bobs. I don't know if it's used for insulation or whatever, but this stuff is was recommended by Railway Modeler or Pico, because it's a good surface to work off, and plus when you're pinning down the track, if the wood's soft enough for accepting the pins, and it also does help reduce sound when the trains are running. And I'll talk more about the track later on, which I've got a method here which will be suitable for it. Anyway, so yeah, the sheets are measured up to 6 feet by 4 feet, and then cut down the middle to be 2 feet by 6 feet. Now this didn't actually come like this. It was actually a sheet of 8 by 4. And the Timber Directions also gave us a spare sheet left over, so we're going to be using that sheet for doing our riverbed, and also for any other bits that are required for the lathes construction. So we're going to stop here and for this part, and the second part I'm going to be showing you what the finished result is going to be. So before I finish this video, just a little few tips, just to, if in case anybody is going to be thinking about putting the layout together. There's a few tools which might be of use for when you're building the layout. And first of all is, some people would nail the framework together. That's okay, but just be careful that you don't split the timber when you're driving the nails in. But I'm going to be screwing my framework together, and this is a little tool you can get from the hardware store. This is like a little drill bit that you can get, but it's also got a little countersink attachment, so that once you drill a hole, there's also a little groove cut out for accepting the heads of your screws. So that just gives it a nice clean finish for the framework, and just a nice clean finish overall. So that's just a little tip to make sure everything's all sorted out. I've also marked out, just in case I forget here, there's also I've also marked out where the bracing as well, it has to be going as well on the top surface. just so in case when you're pinning down the top frame you don't miss out the bracing, you end up making holes all over the place. So just better keep that in mind. Right, okay, I'll end it here, and in the next video we're going to be seeing the finished product of the layout, so I'll see you then. Right, so last night we were busy making up the frameworks, me and my dad were, and this is what the finished result is. We've got some very nice, nicely made up frameworks for our baseboard, now measuring up 6 feet by 4 feet, and as you can see here, we're getting very nice clean button joints. So we've countersinked our screws and made sure we actually glue them in. Glued the bits together before we screwed. Very important rule if you are making a baseboard, always glue before you screw. And what we've also done is only on this board. This is going to be our station board. We've let's see if the camera can pick up. Sorry, it's a bit roughly made, but we've actually drilled some holes in the timber. So it drills holes there, there, and there. So this is going to be for our wiring for the points. For the point motors, and also for our controller cables. Now there's going to be quite a number of track connection sections, but I'll talk more about that there at a later stage. So the next stage, what we're going to do here is, before we put the baseboard top on, we're going to be screwing in some side battens, and this is a bit of 2x2. And what we're going to do is that we're going to cut 4 of these. These are 9-inch lengths, and this is going to be for holding the hinges and for when the layout's being folded up, and also for supporting our background for our scenery. So at the moment, my dad said he's going to pick up some special plates for connecting these onto the baseboard, because if we screw them in like that, we will end up splitting the timber which is holding these here together. So we're going to need to get some special plates bought from the DIY store. I'm going to get these mounted on like that. So there's going to be, when in the full layout, there's going to be one here, one here, one here, and the same thing on the other board, and also at the other end of the layout. So, and then as soon as we get that hinge, there's our hinge here. It'll sit nice and snugly on top like that. So, be a nice fold join. Nice fold up join. Okay, so we'll continue on with that there later on tonight, and we'll let you guys know later on what's the next, how it all progressed. So I'll see you then.